Hello, grade 4, Mr. Mo here, and welcome to Theme. Today is February 27th, and today we are going to be talking about where our food comes from. So, let's put our thinking caps on, tuck in, and let's get started, shall we? So, where does your food come from? If you're eating cheese, do you think there's a lot of dairy farms in Shanghai? Where do you think that cheese came from? If it's the middle of winter and you're eating grapes, where do you think those grapes came from and how did they get to your house? These are all the things that we're going to talk about today. So, let's get ready. But first, our simple question of the day. You have a pyramid of coins and you have to move 3 to flip it upside down. I hope we figured it out. These are the 3 coins that you have to flip in order to make the whole pyramid upside down. Not too tricky, but we're getting the wheels turning today, aren't we? So our aims today are that you should be able to explain where our food comes from, and you should be able to use a digital map to calculate those food miles. Our success criteria for today are that you should be able to find the country or town of origin that our food is labeled, that you should be able to list some of the foods that are produced in China and exported. You should be able to explain why foods are imported and exported. You should be able to identify some of the benefits of importing foods. You should be able to identify some issues related to importing foods as well. Don't forget that you should be able to tell me what food miles are and to use a digital map to calculate the distances between 2 places. We have a lot to do today, so let's get ready to go. So before we get into it, I want you to go into the folder and open the video called Food Miles. Give that a watch, and then we'll come back and talk about what we just saw. Right, so where does all our food come from? Our food travels high and far to get to our local grocery stores. Most of the food in the grocery store is not from Shanghai. So how does that food get to our grocery stores from all over the world? These are called food miles. Depending on how far a product comes, you can calculate how many miles it takes for that certain product to get to your local grocery store so you can buy and enjoy. So what exactly are food miles? And do you think it's something that we should really worry about? It doesn't seem like a big deal, does it? So food miles are the distance an item has traveled from where it was produced to where it was consumed, including all the miles in the supply chain. So, like Mr. Mo was talking about cheese before, it's not exactly cheese. You have to follow the food miles back to the farm where the cows are, where the milk goes, and how the milk is transported to the cheese factory, where it makes the cheese. Then it goes to the distribution, gets on a plane, flies all the way to China. So is this something we should be worried about? Well, we should worry about them because the farther an item travels, the more CO2 is likely to be released into the atmosphere, contributing to climate change. So the farther away your food is, the more harsh on the environment it becomes. So that's something to consider when you go shopping. Right, so that comes to this week's homework that you're going to find in the folder. I want everybody to do 3 stars this week. This is a calculation of where your food comes from and how far it had to travel to get into your grocery store and to your house. You're going to find this worksheet, Food Miles, 3 stars. Then you're going to go to the website that it says, and you shouldn't have any problem going to the website. You look at the food and type in the country that it's from, and it'll calculate how many miles it traveled to get to you. But does fewer miles always mean better for the environment? We're going to look at a couple case studies and see if you agree with the results. So this is the problem. If lettuce is to be grown in the UK in the summertime, you need to use a greenhouse. Those greenhouses use a lot of energy for heating and lighting, which is causing CO2 to be in the atmosphere. But Spain can grow their lettuce outside. No CO2 emissions from heating and lighting. So the only CO2 comes from the transportation that the lettuce takes from Spain to the UK. So now somebody has to calculate which is better, growing our own lettuce in the wintertime and using CO2, or buying it from another country and flying it over. However, fresh UK broccoli releases less CO2 than fresh Spanish broccoli, but freezing the UK broccoli increases CO2 to the same levels as the Spanish produces. So, does that surprise you at all? that the reverse can have the inverse effect on our product. So, what are the benefits of importing food? What's the big deal? Why can't we just eat the food that our country or city produces? Well, first, importing foods means that we have a lot of variety of a healthy diet so we don't get sick. If you know Mr. Mo is from Minnesota, and Minnesota is very cold. So in the wintertime, how can Mr. Mo get his oranges, bananas, and grapes to help him stay healthy? If I want to drink tea, Minnesota doesn't produce any tea. So I have to get imported tea from maybe China to drink in the wintertime. So we have to have a variety of things to stay healthy. Next, importing food provides a market for foreign farmers' produce, boosting foreign economies. So, if, for example, oranges are being produced in Florida, but a country like Brazil can produce oranges for much, much cheaper, it's better for the Brazilian market to produce those oranges than the American oranges. These help other economies boost their produce, so it creates a competition for farmers around the world. Sometimes people forget that sometimes things don't grow. Maybe there's no rain, maybe it's too hot. So importing food protects us against the effects of a poor harvest. Sometimes things don't grow. So when we're importing food, it protects all the food that we have in our country, which is safe. Let's think about the grocery stores for a second. If the grocery store has many options to choose their food, they will choose the cheapest option, which is good for us when we go to the store. We like to buy cheap food. So if the grocery store can get the cheapest option, we benefit as consumers when we buy our products. Now we can look at a product like tomatoes. Everybody loves tomatoes, but they only grow during the summertime. If you import food, then we can enjoy those tomatoes all year long because there's another country that might grow and export those tomatoes. So we can have tomatoes all year long, which is good for us. So, what do you think? Discuss with mom and dad. Should we import food from abroad? Do you like cheeses and grapes from other countries, or should we eat local food? Also, what are the benefits? We get a wide variety of different foods that we can have all year long. We don't have to wait until spring or summer to get certain types of food. But what are the risks? What are the food miles? How much CO2 is released into the atmosphere because you want American cheese in Shanghai? Now, before we finish, Mr. Mo has put another video in the folder called The Geography of Fruit. This is just focusing on fruit, for example. Who are the main producers of fruit and where do they go around the world? You'd be surprised how many fruits China produces and exports to the whole world. So, what have we learned today? You should be able to explain where our food comes from and use a digital map to calculate the food miles using the website. You should be able to find the country or town of origin on the food label that we bought. You should be able to find some of the produce that China produces and exports around the world. You should be able to explain why foods are imported and exported, and talk about the benefits and some of the issues about importing foods. Don't forget, you should be able to tell others what a food mile is and use the digital map to calculate the distances between two places. All right, guys, until next time, we will see you. Have a wonderful day and be ready for more of Mr. Mo's videos in the folder. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.